What's up, party people? This is Tarkus Jude Mossberg here from Facebook, Jude's Junk, Facebook comic book shop, and YouTube channel and website. And I was just watching Atomic Comics. Is it Atomic or Automatic Comics? And he had a little snippet on his YouTube video, 9/8 or nothing. And I agree, but I think he said that it was basically just his preference, and anybody can have any preference they want, and I agree with that as well. And I've been thinking about this for a while, that I wanted to put out a why did I come to the conclusion that I wanted to do 9.8s only. We have a Facebook group called 9.8s only, and there's a lot to unpack here. One, I've been collecting since 1980. So I think Automatic Comics, and some of these longer collectors that have gotten into selling our collection have a certain penchant for what we like to collect, and we do a lot of selling. A lot of collectors don't want to sell, have no interest in selling, and want to die with their comics. Totally get it. It's a different world. A lot of comic collectors buy, sell, and trade as they are growing their collection. If they can sell some of their old books as they move up to maybe to a higher grade, that is very common, and it's always been common. I have a nice book, but I want a nicer copy, or, bragging rights, or there's a lot of reasons why someone might say 9.8 only. I wanted to give you, I have a statistical analysis degree, and I have some spreadsheets. I finally did the math on why I would invest in 9.8s versus a 9.6. And then someone might say, I'm going to flip this around just because I don't have that kind of sophistication to have a picture in the corner of me and the video. I'm not there yet. But the why do we suggest get 9.8s only? And I just wanted to address a couple things that Automatic Comics broke up. I don't remember his name. He's on the 4-panel YouTube video. What is it called? The Unguarded Truth. When you start off collecting, when I was in the 80s, I maybe had some idea that a long time from now I would sell it. Not everybody of you like that. A lot of you read your books and that was it, and you were going to keep them until you die. Totally different type of collecting. A lot of us that are online, watching the values, watching the YouTube videos of what's hot, maybe subscribing to the CLZ and or the price guides. We want to know prices. Maybe we're at the beginning of our collecting. Maybe we're at the end and we want to try to sell out and not just give them to our clients. And so wherever you're at in there, I've gone through, I was going to say a maturation, but I don't know if it's just mature, but a change in the way I've collected over the years. In the 80s, I really liked high-graded books, and all you could tell by Overstreet was, I think the highest they had on Overstreet was 9.2, if I'm not mistaken. So you were just hoping it was that. But nobody was out there saying, mine's better than a 9.2. Yeah, mine's a 9.4. Maybe we were saying that, but above a 9.4, it either didn't exist, or if it did, it only existed in the beholder's mind, the person who owned the book. Oh, this is better than a 9.4. And nobody really gave it any merit. Just like today, if you say you have a raw book and it's 9.8, no one's going to really give you any merit. But back then, if you had said you had better than a 9.4, no one was really going to pay attention to you. So I collected for a lot of different reasons, just like many of you guys collected a lot of different raw books. That's all I could afford, of course. That's all there was back then, was raw books. But as your collection grows and you have to transport it around, and as your life changes, you need to move, you get married, your budget changes, your desires change. I stopped in 1992 when I got married. I was about 25, I think. No, 22. And also, I was already disheveled with the whole comic book industry since all the big independent boom of 90s. You could start to see everything was just a waste of time and energy, and it was really deflating. So I got out the right time. Didn't get back in it until 2021 when I found out a lot of my comics from the 80s might have gone up in value and I needed to sell them. And then I started learning how to sell them and how to get rid of them and liquidate them. And there's a lot of ways people might want to get rid of their comics, but you don't plan all this stuff out when you start. You collect what you like or what you can afford. someday you might want to liquidate them. When you get into the world of liquidating your comics, selling them, trading them, you find out quickly that not everybody values all your comics the same way you did. That one comic, you just loved it, great memory, worth $1 in that condition. And that's a little deflating. When you carry around one of your prize books for 30 years and you find out it was a qualified book and that bookstore owner ripped you off, that's deflating. When you think you've been keeping all your books in bags in Mylerites back then, or bag and board, and you think they've never been read, and you just put them in the box and they're good to go, and you send them in to get graded, and you get back 7 O's, 8 5s, 9 2s, and you find out the book isn't even worth the $50 that you put into the grading, with the shipping, pressing, and administrative fees and all that. So it's a little deflating when you pour $50 into a book and you can't even sell it for $50 because it's that one grade point under what would have been profitable for you to grade it. And then maybe you say, well, maybe I'm not going to get into grading. I'm just going to sell raw books. Okay, you can do that as well. You can do anything you want. But for those of us who are collecting comic books, we're selling and buying. We know that a grade, because now we know how to grade, a certain grade is going to get you a lot more money. You invest $30 into a grade, that might get you a 200% return. That's only $60 extra. It might get you a lot more than that. So there's a lot of reasons why I wanted to get into 9/8. One, I want my books slabbed because they're a lot more liquid. It was very, very hard for me to sell raws, especially with the grades I gave them, because people said, you're not a professional grader, you can't grade. So I was like, yeah, but I've been grading for 40 years. What's all this, 50 years? What's all this talk about professional grader? Everybody had to grade before 2020. And so I'd say a book was a 9.6 plus, and I would want to charge a premium on that versus a 9.4. And I'd be willing to send them 10 pictures, front, back, all 4 corners, front and back. And sometimes people would buy it, but sometimes people were just like, I just want a near mint copy. I don't need a 9.6. I just want a 9.2, 9.4, whatever. And they'd want to pay the eBay rates, and that's fine. But when you have a nice book and you know what it's worth because you subscribe to the price guides, I know what a nice book is, a 9.6 is worth. And worst case scenario, I pay $22, get it graded, and it's worth 400 or 300 or 200. So I'm not going to sell that raw for what a 9.2 raw is worth, which would be a lot less. So making them liquid, it's a lot easier to move books with a grade on it. It keeps them in better condition. Some of my books might have gotten damaged in the travels. My magazine size TMNT 1s, Raphael's, I had some other magazine size books. They didn't get stored in proper bags and boards. They were put between yearbooks and other stuff like that, so they weren't kept in greatest condition because I didn't get them graded back in the 80s. So I like the grading, keeps them in good condition, and it's easy to move. It's easy to move. It's easy to see the value. And again, another reason I wanted to just do 9.8s is because I think the market out there is bigger for people that want a 9.8 versus a 9.6. And the question is why? And I think I want to share with you why I think a 9.8 is better. I'm going to turn this around now. And I know it's a little dizzy. I just had that book as a background, as an example, 9.8. But I'm going to let your eyes adjust. I don't expect you to read all this information. But I just did a quick AI search on the top 10, most popular books since 1990. And it gave me some of these. Some of these are just big name books, not necessarily valuable a lot. And then I did another AI search and said, what are the most valuable books since 1985? And it gave me some more books. And then I tweaked it and added a couple, like I put in Marvel. I put in Wolverine Limited Series versus Wolverine because, Wolverine Limited Series was before 1985. So there's a lot of other books I could put on there, but I got independents. I got some of the biggest valuable books. I got popular books. I got independent books. So I got these, I think there's 15 there. And what I did is I went into GPA and I wrote down the 90-day average for a 9.8, what that is. And it's right there on the screen. It's easy. And I was trying to extrapolate and estimate what 2026 9.8 was. And then I realized in GPA, you can just scroll down. It'll tell you exactly what the average is. So these are hard, fast numbers. Originally, I went in here and tried to eyeball the 2019 averages, 16. But in some cases, 2016, I don't know what was going on, whether there was some movies that were coming out, but there was a wide swing in values, especially what you'll see with NYX. Walking Dead was real popular. Killing Joke, Batman movies were out. So some of those had some volatility in 2016. And the whole point of me picking 2016 is because it's about a 10-year gap. And we want to try to look at what the estimated return on investment would be if you bought a book in 2016 and whether you bought a 9.6 or a 9.8. Which one is going to give you the better return on investment? That was the goal of this exercise. And I've always just assumed 9.8 is the better return on investment. So that was one of my reasonings that, one, it would be more liquid, more buyers for a 9.8. Now, when you get up in the bigger books, that might not be the case. You know, a TMMT 1, you might have more buyers for a 9.6 because that's expensive. Same thing with an Albedo 2, very expensive. Same thing with a Bone 1, very expensive. And an Invincible number 1. Those are very expensive. So you can see that there's, you can't make blanket assumptions across the board. So I wanted to tell you where I got the data from, garbage in, garbage out. I pulled hard data from GPA is what I use. And I just wanted to show you the difference here. And this is a difference between a 9.6 today, 90-day, versus a 9.8. Typically, when I'm out there buying and selling, typically I suggest it's about a two times amount. That's a rough estimate. So that would be a percentage difference of 100. So you can see right here, 98% for Wolverine Limited Series. 245 versus 486. It's almost identically half. And that's a good assumption. But you can see it's not the case. For the more expensive books, you're all over the place. Albedo 2, it's about 100% difference. New Mutants 98, a little over 100%. Bone 1, 100%. Now, when you get into the smaller, cheaper books, they might not be 100. Marvel Superheroes, Batman Killing Joke, Spawn 1, you know, you're looking at 70 to 80%. Walking Dead is about 80%. So the value of a 9.8 is about, it's not quite 2 times. It is slightly under 2 times. So 100 would equal the 9.8 is twice as more expensive as the 9.6. Once you go down below that, then the 9.8 isn't quite as 2 times the amount of a 9.6. Invincible has been all over the place recently, so you might see some outliers, but you can see that the lowest number is on it's a Walking Dead. You get a 9.6 for 1,600. I just recently got a 9.8 for 1,900, so I did a whole video on why Walking Dead 1 is selling 9.6s for 1,600 when a 9.8 can be got for under 2,000. That was crazy. Maybe I just got a screaming deal. Invincible 1's right around that 80%, which surprises me. But then you get into Batman the Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, 256%. Anyways, these numbers aren't the most important, but if you look at the average down here, 112%. So on average, I'll make an assumption that a 9.8 is worth twice what a 9.6 is. So if I come across a book, depends on age, of course, but if I come across a book, there's no recorded sales of a 9.6 or a 9.8. I usually say a 9.6 is worth about twice what a 9.4 is, and a 9.8 is worth about twice what a 9.6 is. Usually a little bit higher. That's what you can see, 112. Now you can see the 9.6s versus the 9.8 back in 2016, exact same ratio, 114. So almost twice as high, a little bit more than twice as expensive as a 9.6. So that was interesting for me to do the math and see that the statistics of what a 9.6 costs versus a 9.8, it's about twice as much. So let me put it in perspective. You go out and buy 2 9.6s, that would have been the same as if you would have just gotten a 9.8. So if you want more books, which becomes a problem when you carry thousands of books, you could get 2 9.6s instead of 1 9.8. But if you're looking at selling them, hold off on those 2 9.6s, pick one of them you like better, and buy it at a 9.8. It's really that simple. You're not going to just buy 1 9.6. I know some people like the 9.6s, and that's their jam, and go for it. The real numbers on here that were actually eye-opening to me, I always assume that the return on investment for a 9.8 was higher than a 9.6. So I'm going to look over here at the numbers. You can see a 10-year interest rate in a 9.8 versus a 10-year interest rate in a 9.6. The percent interest that you gained on a 9.6 is actually higher in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the books, the 9.8 was a better investment. So this actually debunks my whole thesis of this, was that I was assuming that a 9.8, I know that's pretty hard to see, but a 9.8 was a better return on investment. This is saying that's not the case. This is saying it all depends on the book. So that's when you get into, okay, well, now let's look into the detailed data. The two books are big, expensive independents. If you would have gotten Albedo 2 in 2016, it would have served you to get a 9.6. If you would have gotten a Teenage Mutant Turtles in 2016, it would have served you to get a 9.8. Could you have known that back then? I don't think so. I think we would have still said Teenage Mutant Turtles was a better investment. Now, there's a bigger difference in cost in 2016 prices. You were talking about a $2,000. I'm looking at the very top. In 2016, you're talking about investing at $2,000 versus $12,000, and maybe you couldn't afford the $12,000, so then that wouldn't even been an option. But as far as straight numbers go, it would have been better to buy an Albedo 2 in 2016 for a return on investment than a TMNT 1. Which is actually very surprising to me. I did not expect to see that data. Sometimes you just got to do the math to find out what's really going on. How about New Mutants 98 and Wolverine Limited Series? That's the next two series. Okay. Return on investment over 10 years, 18% interest rate. Now, this doesn't include selling costs and carrying costs and all that, insurance and blah, 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 and bags and boards. But 18% does not sound like a great investment over 10 years because, maybe 18% a year, but this is 18% for all 10 years. And if you really wanted to do a math, you would do the time value of money and you'd look at what the calculated interest rate is. But this is just a straight line, 18% in 10 years, which is not very good. That might have been because New Mutants, Deadpool the movie was already coming out, and so it shot up right before 2016, and that's why buying it then doesn't show you the greatest return on investment. But you see Wolverine Limited Series, 150%. Now you get into those weird independents. Your Bone 1, been better to buy a 9.6 in 2016. Marvel Superhero Secret Wars are about the same. Look at that. Very popular book, 218% versus 219%. That is a popular book, Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, that you would have gotten a good interest either way. But then look at Batman Killing Joke. It's at a really all-time low, and I think 2016 is right when this book got popular. So it hardly, if you got a 9.6, you actually lost money in 10 years. 8% in 10 years is not a good interest rate. You're supposed to get 8% a year if you were in the market. So Batman Killing Joke has not done well. So maybe these numbers say the ones that have not gone up a lot, if they're still popular books, might need to be invested in. Alternatively, it might mean that there's way more of these books out there, and so the value has not consistently gone up. Like Batman the Killing Joke was in that hard stock, and a lot of them came out 9.8, so maybe there's a ton of 9.8s on there now versus 10 years ago, and it just isn't going to go up because there's just too many. What about Spawn 1? Let's look at that one. 77% versus 74%. Not a real significant difference. You could have gotten either one. Let's look at NYX3. This one has a little asterisk by it because there was a bump in 2016, which was just a coincidence from when I started recording this data. When did Logan come out? Something happened in 2016 where the prices jumped. And so that's why you see only a 30% increase from 2016 because it was right after the big jump. 9.6, only 12%. Walking Dead #1. So Walking Dead's been a popular movie for a while. You'd have lost money on that. That's a good note to self. If you're looking at investment in Invincible, look what Walking Dead has done in 10 years. Nothing but lost money. Invincible, they're all going to be 9/8. No, 2003 that's not true. But a lot of people have those 2003 books. They're going to get pressed. They're getting added. I think Invincible is going to go the same way as Walking Dead. Both Image, both same year of time frame. I would expect much more Invincible books are coming out now, and you might want to avoid it because what Walking Dead has gone down in value. Now, maybe the popularity of the show finally ended. The popularity for Invincible is going to end. Eventually, there's going to be a final season. Maybe more books will get graded, but you would have lost money if you got Walking Dead in 2016. Right next to that, Invincible. If you bought that in 2016, you'd be rich. That was way before any of the hype, movie deals, any of that stuff. All right, let's look at some of the more popular books. Batman, Dark Knight Returns. That 9.8 has dropped a lot. You would have made no money if you got a 9.8. I actually think it's an undervalued book. I think if you get it and get it cheap and then get it signed by Frank Miller before he passes away, that is going to be the big deal. Wolverine Limited Series 1 signed. Batman The Dark Knight Returns signs by Frank Miller. I think those are valuable books. 9/8 blue labels, I don't think they're going to be going up much. I'm trying to look back to see Wolverine. Actually, Wolverine Limited Series has gone up. That was that big push last year. Everybody wanted that because Logan was coming back to the movies, and maybe it'll go back down like The Dark Knight has. But anyways, here's one that shows you the 9.86 would have been the better investment. Who would have thought? All right, let's look at Sandman. Now, I know there's been some problems with him and the popularity and the movie's over, but if you would have gotten a 9.6, 9.8 10 years ago, you would have made 2%. It would have been better off getting the 9.6. Again, my whole thesis was to prove to you why I collect 9.8 only, and this data actually suggests that it depends. It's 50-50. Half the time 9.6s will be a better investment, half will be the 9.8s will be the better investment. So then if that's true, and it's not an investment per se, the question is, can you move a 9.6 as easy? Can you move a 9.6 Spawn 1? These are cheap books, right? Look at all these books under 100 back then. What's the 101? That's the Wolverine Limited Series. 94, 100, 42. So I don't get the feeling that 9.6 are going to be in demand if it's under $100. But that might be the good time to buy it, though, because as you can see, the data says, Batman The Dark Knight Return went up 38%. Sandman has gone up 17%. How about watching number 1? 9.8 would have given you a 100% return in 10 years. That's not really a good time. They say at 8%, it's about 8 years to get a 100% return. So 100% return in 10 years is not really good. All right, Ultimate Fallout is the bottom one, 1,400%, 418% versus 481. The 9.6 had a much better return. Let's look at a lot of these that have been better to move your money into the stock market. Anything under 100% is a bad deal. Okay, what is that one right there? 18%. So instead of investing in New Mutants 98, you should have invested in the stock market. 127. Bone 1, 127. You probably would have done just as well in the stock market. A little over 100%. Batman Killing Joke, better off investing. Spawn 1, better off investing in the market. NYX3 is 30%. Better off investing in the stock market. Walking Dead number 1, better off investing in the stock market. Batman The Dark Knight Returns, Spawn 1, 0 interest hardly. This is very interesting. This is not what I expected. But see, you got to do the math to really look at it. So again, going back to my whole thesis, the return on investment was better for a 9.6. How many of these 9.6s would you have not wanted to invest in? I mean, that's 620. That's the Albedo 2. That would have been a great investment. All right, what is this? Bone 1, Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. decent investment in a 9.6. 9.6 would have been a good investment for bone 1 versus a 9.8. What's this one? Invincible, 853. Way better off 10 years ago getting the 9.6. Batman The Dark Knight Returns, forget about it. Sandman, forget about it. Watchmen, forget about it. Ultimate Fallout would have been a great investment back then. So anyways, me trying to do a whole video all to prove why I say 9.8 onlys, and it's showing me the data that it is not the best return on investment. Now again, which one do people want? Are there more buyers for a 9.8? I still think so. Do you enjoy 9.6s? If you enjoy 9.6s, you enjoy looking at them. 9.8s repel you because you don't really trust CGC, and the difference between a 9.6 and 9.8 is negligible, and you like 9.8s and you have buyers for, you like 9.6s and you have buyers for 9.6s when you want to liquidate, then this whole video actually proves me wrong, which I find very interesting. I like looking at 9.8s. I don't like looking at 9.6s. So that's a preference. I believe I can sell more to 9.8s. I've attracted people around me in my Facebook groups that only do 9.8s. So that's my bias. But this is an argument to say, for those bigger books that are going on today, maybe you get the 9.6s. Maybe you get the 9.6s, especially as you look at this data right here, 2026. And you find out what the difference is. And if it is less than 100%, maybe it's a good buy. Albedo number 2 is 92%. Maybe that's a good buy. Wolverine Limited Series is at 98. What this means is, if it's under 100%, the 9.8 isn't quite twice as valuable as the 9.6. But there's a lot on here under 100. Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, 70%. Batman the Killing Joke, 78. Spawn 1, 82. NYX number 3, 84. Walking Dead, 66. Invincible number 1, Sandman number 1 are all under 100%. So what does that mean? Maybe they're undervalued. It also might mean that the demand for those 9.6s is low and the supply is high, so people don't want them. So I don't know if these numbers have a direct correlation to what's the better investment for 10 years from now. So going back to buy what you like, I think that might be the best investment, Buy the 9.8s, buy the 9.6s, buy the raws. You can always do the math, but whatever you're stuck with at the end, I hope you're happy with it. If you're not happy with 9.6s, don't collect them. Don't go out and buy a bunch of raws and hope to get a 9.8 and then get bummed when half of them are 9.8s and half of them are 9.6s. Just buy 9.8s. That's what I did. I got tired of getting 9.4s and 9.6s with books that I thought were a 9.8. I just started buying graded books. Anyways, a long video. All those numbers might make you dizzy. Happy hunting, guys.